So, are you? Where are you based? Was that you? Where are
I'm
you
based.
based? Was that? Oh, sorry. Sorry. I guess both of
No,
you. Open question.
no worries.
You go, Cole.
Yeah, I'm based Salt Lake City in Utah in the United
Oh, cool,
States.
man. Good deal.
How
Nice.
about yourself?
I'm normally well, I'm supposed to be in San Francisco. I'm in South Africa right now,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, but no,
Cool.
normally closer to you.
Where, whereabouts in South Africa are you?
Pretoria, just for a conference last couple of days. But we have a lot of work around Johannesburg. Um, there's like a Cradle of Humankind, which is this big game reserve with some major poaching issues there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was looking at the website, seeing on the map that you had something in South Africa. So it's kind of curious
We
because you
should have
have a
more. Working on
yeah,
that too, but
yeah.
nothing jungly, all very like rocky plains. But
Well, I'm calling from my tree house in the jungle of Paris.
it's that looks like Paris in the background.
Yeah, yeah. Once upon a time, but yeah, Cole and I, we've been working together now for about 3 years now,
Yeah,
approximately.
Oh, nice.
yeah,
Um,
about three.
mostly like this on camera, given geography. But yeah, we came into this blockchain community, Cardano specifically, given its kind of mission to bring solutions to where they're needed. A lot of the initial efforts were focused on Africa, and the community has obviously grown now over the years. I think I shared with you, Topher, a link to the grant that we secured to work with Rimba, who are French Indonesian nonprofit, and the founder Nad actually is a friend of my wife's, so we go way back. I got to visit Rimba 3 times now over the last 10 years,
Oh, nice.
and as you know, I saw your video with your visit to Borneo, like what's happening over there, and yeah, I figured with what you guys are doing at Rainforest Connection, it'd be really awesome to be able to see if you can bring those tools really to the rangers and help the efforts in Sumatra and in Palawan, and also in DRC, because we're working with guys down there too. So it's
Noma
really,
guys, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
really inspiring to see what you guys have accomplished over the years as well. And uh, you know, I don't know if maybe you could give a bit of an intro on yourself as well, Toph. That would be appreciated.
Yeah, that'd
Yeah,
be
absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah, sure. That seems fair. So my background originally is much more in like physics and a bit of software engineering. But again, visited Borneo for the first time back in 2012 or 11, I forget which, and then to volunteer to Gibbon Reserve um, in Kalimantan, and saw that they were having this logging issue. I was kind of stuck on this idea at the time that like IoT shouldn't be like new hardware, which at the time made sense to me, and it should be like using old smartphones. So I pitched this idea to help them check legal logging with sound, and then of course that was a great idea, but building it was like significantly harder. And moved back from France. I was in south of France at that time, working in fusion energy, but moved back to California to try and build this out. And it worked. It took a few years for us to get the hardware to work. We started our first pilot was in Sumatra, West Sumatra, where we still have some pretty good ties. Um, and then moved into Africa, into South America. And to be honest, it took us a few years to get the hardware to be reliable, and the same amount of time to get the software to detect chainsaws the way we wanted it to and other threats, and the same amount of time to figure out what happens after that's supposed to after you detect those threats to get people to reliably respond. We sort of we had the advantage of the first group we worked with being like the most like bold, put together group, who and like the right thing sort of convening. So it showed us that it could work. So we were very lucky, because otherwise I'm not sure we would have felt that it could. And but through perseverance, we got it there. Because everything can go wrong when you're trying to stop illegal logging. Like false positives, like people decide they don't have to respond, even if they are sort of like well equipped, they don't want to respond because it's like pretty scary, and most of the time, and everyone's looking for reasons not to. And then after they respond, like, and you catch the loggers, then what do you do? So like, and that's like 3 of 15 things that boxes you have to check along the way. And on top of that, like, there's really no like ending to illegal logging. Monitoring. Even if you catch loggers, you have to keep listening. Like, you have to keep the system up and running. And so the funding around that is always an ongoing challenge, and support for local groups, because this is purely just one of the things they need on top of like fuel and equipment and livelihoods of their own. And so a lot of what Rainforest Connection was doing was trying to figure out the other ways to make use of the data coming out of the forest. And we got into bioacoustics and ecoacoustics, which you may have seen online as well, being able to both so I guess to understand nature with sound. And so probably 60-70% of our income these days is on science work. And so we built out a science team to analyze the sounds of the forest and automatically detect species, and built a tool called Arbamon, which you may have heard about too, to allow us to build training data sets for that. And so that occupies the vast majority of the headspace of the team. Meanwhile, I'm trying to push people to, not like lose focus on these like really urgent problems around illegal logging, and which is not fair. No one's against it, but again, it's way easier to count species than it is to stop illegal loggers. To be honest,
That makes sense.
yeah, and at the same time, I also feel like you have to push things forward. So I've been focusing on like a lot of offshoots from this over the past year and a half or so. I wanted to rebuild the hardware from scratch. So this is it's called the Delta, if nothing else, but it largely replaces the Guardians out in the forest, kind of like the next step forward and all these sorts of things, with the goal also that this becomes like almost a consumer device that people can use to measure biodiversity closer to home, and then have a lot of things that come out of it, everything from like Gen AI storytelling for your kids, so they can keep track of the skunk and the fox that comes through your backyard as characters that talk to the blackbird and all sorts of crazy shit like that. Yeah. But along this idea of how do we actually build a case for why biodiversity like is part of the life that for the rest of the people that don't care as much about nature that we do from the start. How can we like build that in like new audiences? And then meanwhile, while Rainforest Connection is pushed forward by our corporate funding and like by the work around science. Oh, thank you, Zoom. I'm glad Zoom improves. I'm trying to launch another. Oh, whoa! How'd you do that?
2 thumbs.
Oh wow, man! Oh, impressive. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. So much closer to the areas you're talking about. Again, how do we drive livelihoods? We can try and solving some of these problems. And so a whole new pilot that we're launching with this new hardware and with the Ministry of Tourism in Malaysia, Sarawak, Borneo, Malaysian Borneo, around trying to use biodiversity insights to actually to build up the 2nd and 3rd tier tour operators, so they can put together much better experiences in ecotourism than those like huge resorts out there, using like real-time awareness of where the species are, and environmental data, and trying to improve that experience overall. So that's a lot of what I'm focusing on over the next 6 months or so, apart from any pilots that we put together. And that feels pretty long-winded, but you can sort of see the trajectory along the way. I lean pretty heavily. Yeah, sorry. I'll stop for a second.
No. Thank you so much, Topher. That's really inspiring to hear as well, the vision, and thank you for sharing how it's divided, because what you mentioned as well about the illegal logging, like just the other day I was listening to a podcast between Mongo Bay and Paul Rosalie. I'm not sure if you guys have spoken already yet, but one thing he mentioned is this idea that when you speak to the loggers and you say to them, what you're doing is actually hard work, right? And clearly you're doing it because you want to sustain yourselves, your family, whatever. If you can give them an alternative, they would take it, by and large, depending on what the blackmail is, but usually. And so I think that's where the ecotourism comes in, because with Rimba, they have an eco lodge in their site. Which they've been operating for years now. So it's that idea of having the non-profit and the eco lodge to work with the community to have additional revenue, and educate the locals to more sustainable, pathways. But with the Palawan NGO network in Palawan, what they've noticed is because of the challenge around corruption and the local governance, a lot of the tourism and the land clearing to accelerate, the tourism industry is what they're up against. So the people involved in the land clearing, for example, and the logging, they're not necessarily locals either. So they're coming from wherever they're coming from for
big companies. Yeah.
So this is the other challenge, and
they call them first tier operators, as they call them. Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's something where, going back to, I guess, as being a startup, how do you help solve the problems with the locals, but also find alternatives to bring the funding to where it's needed and to help. So this is where Cole and I and our collaborators have looked at how blockchain and NFTs can come into this, because I'll give you one example. A lot of talk now on the voluntary carbon market, right? Mm-hmm. And all the heat it's got. And then the question as to, the validity on the ground, is it actually leading to impact? How do you measure impact? Now, when what we started, thought about art as on one hand, it's, you've got visual impact there, storytelling. You can bring in cultural heritage, history, but by putting it on the blockchain, you make it immutable and accessible in a transparent way. Mm-hmm. You slowly introduce these concepts and tools to people who are not in the bubble, and eventually, in the long term, hopefully can access this digital economy, because that's the whole point, that they can find new incomes, because at the moment, mm-hmm. that's the challenge on the ground, escaping poverty. Mm-hmm. So if they can see, okay, because you guys sold some art and because we gave you guys impact data, it actually generated money that wouldn't have come to us if we didn't do this. The incentives become, apparent. And what I was attracted to with Rainforest Connection is when you talked about all that acoustic data, which, if you add up all of it, it's more than anyone can ever listen to in their lifetime, but it's all very unique. That moment will never happen again. It's, it's non-fungible.
That's the thing. Mm-hmm.
So that can all actually be tokenized and monetized, because there is a market for it. And then that can go, and this brings me back to a video I saw when I was teaching geography in London that came out of the Economist. It talked about how the Amazon has become, famous for so many reasons, but what people don't realize is a lot of our medicinal and pharmaceuticals come at some point from there. They get nowhere near as much as they deserve, right? In terms of what they've contributed. If you had that kind of supply chain transparency, where you have equitable profit sharing because it's evidenced. Now, thinking back to the acoustics data, when you talk about the biodiversity in an area, which can help direct funding to where it's needed, the hotspots. The indigenous communities are in those areas, who are the land defenders, the guardians. How do you monetize the work? How do you reward them for what they're doing? And I think these are kind of the novel ways that could be appealing to Rainforest Connection. And COP28 is happening right now, and they're talking a lot around loss and damages and mixed finance models, and how do we get money to where it's needed, right? These tools are one of the most direct ways to do it at cost, because you don't have unnecessary middlemen, and kind of eliminating this conflict of interest as well, where people are incentivized to be the middlemen, because if they're removed from the equation, they lose their jobs, but the overheads are quite high for certain parties. So how do you just maximize funding to the ground, rather than they get the crumbs of whatever is actually donated?
Very little money makes it done. Very little money makes it done. Even if there's a biodiversity credit or the carbon credits, very little money makes it done.
Exactly. So this is where we're looking at the angle of, right, if as you said, you know, they need fuel, food for the power enforcers, the rangers. These are the everyday realities. If you can't be well fed and travel, you can't do the defending. And then if you don't know where to defend because of the vastness of the rainforest, so I think this is where all the pieces of the puzzle come in to improve the situation. Doesn't, you know, solve it overnight, but can hopefully move in a better direction.
Also, I had a couple questions. Well, I remember Raz showing me this like a while back. And sorry, it's like just the second time I'm kind of like checking it out and everything. But
That's great. Yeah,
I was no worries. But I was wondering if you guys like you said you were trying to like expand markets and like go to different pockets of the world. New Zealand could be maybe like a good place for this type of thing because they have like pest eradication across like the entire country, and
Maybe say what
or
they
like
call again.
a different form of like trying to create like indigenous biodiversity, or would you say just like, yeah, I'd say maybe indigenous biodiversity, and that could be possibly like something. I know like they put like lots of funding each year into just creating like these little cages to like catch these pests. And I feel like having that biodiversity monitoring or knowing like what's where. They're also like trying to in a lot of different areas like kind of bring species back to life and like make them more abundant. And
sure.
feel like that also could possibly help like in those different areas. So that's just like a suggestion. And then also
Yeah, I'll make you a deal. We work together. If you like it, let's go to New Zealand. Let's do it. If you like working with
do
me, let's do it.
it. And I
Deal.
actually I'm pretty connected with some people in DOC, the Department of Conservation
Mm.
there, so I could maybe get you connected. And
Right.
also a Very Tree. I don't know if you've ever heard of Very Tree, but they're a corporate
Very true.
a tree planting project. And Berry trees right now, what they're like kind of trying to, they've created a really cool solution where they pretty much track and monitor every tree that's planted, but they want to bring more like monitoring tools. They want more data for their corporate like clients. And I feel like something like this could
Good idea.
enhance their data like at calculation or data like taking and calculating. And by having these on just like little bits of their trees could maybe add that extra layer of like some like a detail in a way. So that's also something I
Absolutely.
suggest. And then also just what did I say? Yeah, I just think it's really cool how these devices could really amplify the way we kind of track impact and maybe like Raz was saying, take out that middleman. And I feel like you could really tokenize that type of impact. And with what we're trying to do, I feel
Exciting.
like a lot of the different projects, especially like Rimba, PNNI, they're really focused on like illegal logging and like biodiversity and the land itself. So I feel like your solution kind of really aligns well with what we're trying to like kind of capture and track and monitor. And yeah, I just think
I'm
it's
there
really
with you guys.
cool.
Thank you so much. I mean, I'm really there with you guys. There's so thanks for both that because there's things to respond to across the board. Again, so much of the funding for Rainforest Nation comes from like corporate partners who are interested in the impact. What they're really doing is they're investing in their abilities to tell the story. I'm not sure whether that's a sustainable business model as we want over time. And so what we really need to do is drive livelihoods that, of course, support the tech development, the science development, and the people on the ground. And that seems a lot closer to like actually a transactional type, like transactional for the outputs of the forest that are not like extractive. So like, what are all the ways we can creatively turn data into like funding for people? Like you just cited a few of those, right? The top-down carbon markets have been pretty hard. I only recently, so I can tell you guys, it's really cool you're working on Cardano because just over the past few weeks, I've been sort of helping some friends put together some emissions calculations on Hedera blockchain for a system called the Guardian, and then doing offsets using this system called Talum. And so that's the extent of my being plugged into to those systems. I'm of course fairly agnostic on like which blockchain we make good solutions on. But but I'm pretty new to actually developing in that, and it's been really cool to see the possibilities and imagine them. So I'm excited to work with you guys there. I love that you talk about NFTs, and then when you talked about like the moments, because again we have this whole, and I'll tell you why I'm excited on ecotourism side of things, because I think that there's a premium in tourism that doesn't get applied to like everything else. It's like not entirely commoditized in a way. And it's one thing to go, I think I realized this when we have this streaming app, which I'm glad you guys have tested, and it's cool. You can listen to the sounds of the forest. It's beautiful. But most people listen to it and they're like, okay, that's what the forest sounds like. Some people listen like every day, but like it's the same 50 people from the past like 4 years. Most people listen and they're done. And so, a recording of a parrot, people don't need 10,000 of them, right? But making it your own really matters. And whether it be the consumer device in your backyard or the one that's in the forest or on ecotourism, if we can capture the moment and make it feel like it actually solely belongs to you. Because again, there's unlimited amounts that are coming out. But if you go into the forest on like the morning and you get to see with your tour operator and you get to see a gibbon, and we can capture a moment of the gibbon singing when you're there or even nearby, right? And we're like, you know what? That was the moment that you were there and it belongs only to you. Then it makes sense as an NFT. You can take it home, you can gift it to other people, and it really was a moment that won't happen again, and it was yours, like at least for the purposes of the transaction. So, that's the type of stuff that we can really multiply out. Like moments. The great thing about time is that it keeps on going. So we're constantly adding to this, and I'm really pleased that you came to some kind of similar, conclusion there. It's really great to work with you based upon that.
Thank you, Topher. And what you just said as well, I had a flashback, like, when you're in the garden sometimes looking out and then a bird lands on your windowsill and you're like, hey, this was just for me. Like no one else knows this happened. That special moment, if you had capturing of it, because sometimes you don't have your phone on you, you're like, oh, I couldn't capture it. But this is one way to help capture
makes sense
those
as
moments.
an NFT. Like imagine you're with like your grandchild or your kid or your girlfriend or whatever, and like that thing happens, and we can capture it, and then you can gift it to them. And like again, it's just an NFT, right? But it makes sense as like an ownership kind of thing,
Yeah.
100%. And you can play with that afterwards, because the whole idea of proof of ownership can then lead to other, use cases and engagement. So I think that's where the advantages come in with the tech. But
yeah,
just
it's less
to say
of a buying and selling and more of a gifting. It's a gifting thing, and those gifts, of course, can be pretty valuable.
But
okay, but yeah,
just to be clear from our side, though, like we're also blockchain agnostic. We came to Cardano because of its initial design, ethos, and development, and obviously the space has evolved a lot since then. We're very much on the whole front of what's the best tool, right? You look at the problem and then what's the best thing to solve it. So, with that being said, we work with Singularity Net and one of our advisors, Dr. Iliari, who's also in talks with the Hedera team. So, there's a lot of really well-meaning people, and they all want to solve problems too. So, I mean, that's the thing to focus on.
And they're serious people. Like they aren't just messing around. Like they're not just in it for the messaging. They're not like they mean what they say. Like at least the people that I've gotten to talk to. It's very cool, including you.
I just thought of something with the NFT stuff. Like what could also kind of like make it kind of like a gamified like experience. Like if people are like just getting those special moments, maybe like from specific areas, like there's certain species that like you want to capture, or you could almost like have like a collecting type of like thing, like, oh, I got this NFT of this parrot and like this other type of bird and this other animal, and like I'm trying to collect like all my animals from like this area. It could be almost like a little, like make it a little bit more fun for people to like, let's say if they don't like I feel like a lot of people have that special connection, like you said before, like maybe you saw it with a girlfriend or a parent or something and you want to gift it to them, but like maybe another layer of that could be like, oh, I want to collect like all the animals in my area, like
yeah,
something like that.
That's awesome, man. And I think schools can get involved in that, because young people,
Oh,
they like the whole idea of citizen scientists, right?
Totally.
And rarity. So NFTs also play with rarity. So you have rarity in the animal kingdom, of course, and endangered species.
We can
So
express that. And you have variety. You have variety of. It doesn't matter if it's the same animal. They do different things, from day to day. They don't do. They're like us. They do the same thing most of the time every day. But it looks we can make it look a little different, and also we can enhance it. We can enhance this stuff. There's no rule that says that we have to present nature exactly as it is. If we can enhance it for the purposes of people enjoying it more, it's not like we're not hurting nature. We're not there necessarily to, and you'll see a bit of that in the video I just sent, which is which is very poor little promo for some of the consumer experiences around this storytelling. So
thanks for that.
Sure, yeah, give those a check out. Yeah, I'm excited to work with you guys. What do you? Okay, it's cool you're talking about Palawan. It's cool you're talking about West Sumatra, because I assume it's West Sumatra, because those are probably two places that I know quite well. And West Sumatra, I think, is my favorite forest in the whole world, so far. So it means that it's easy to envision how we would get stuff done there.
Yeah, I think I'm really, really excited and grateful that you've responded to the call, man. Because one of the things I've noticed over the years, like Cole can probably attest to this as well. Like you know how LinkedIn can be, and yeah, it's really grateful you picked it up.
Thanks for making
sometimes
it happen.
got hundreds of messages there. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, it's timing makes all the difference sometimes. But now that we know each other, we're off the races, so it's all good.
Yeah, with the plans that you shared, because on our side, February was the estimated time I'd be back in the Philippines and Indonesia to kind of take the project to the next phase and see how things are going. But in terms of long term, with the funding that we're hoping to secure in February as well, the proposal that we're collaborating on, that's one front. But between now and then, we're still working on the one with Rimba in West Sumatra. The aim is to support their program of purchasing land. So there's the Mwaro Reserve. I'll send you the links. The Mwaro Duo Reserve, which they've worked with the government, the Forestry Commission, and all of the relevant stakeholders. But as you know, it's one thing on paper when they're like, yeah, we want to protect it, and then the reality on the ground where the illegal logging is happening or the slash and burn farming is happening, even though it's going to be protected. So what the nonprofit are seeing is if we can purchase the land to create a corridor where this barrier now, land is owned by the nonprofit, then this land can be used to carry out education programs with the locals to see how they can still have their livelihoods in a way that isn't, not just about short-term benefits.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, how do we? I guess the question: how do we make sustainable? I think that's the biggest question that stands out in the whole industry right now. How do we make sustainable products like better products than the others from a user experience perspective? Not just like a seal or like a good feeling, but like what is something that like a sustainable product can do that others can't, at least honestly. And ecotourism, because we can choose to give these, we can choose what like we're willing to grant to who, at least for a while. But yeah, I'm in there. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, man. I think the ecotourism is interesting because with the Palawan NGO network, they had their ecotourism arm, Paysar Tours. But it comes down to the urgency of the matter. So they realized that the people coming to them to want to work, we're like, okay, so we either work in the ecotourism arm or the
Mhm.
illegal logging mission arm. If we don't have enough personnel for the illegal logging mission arm, the ecotourism arm is not going to be able to exist eventually, because it won't be able to compete with the resorts
Mhm.
and the loss of the forest. So they kind of
Mm.
shifted all of their resources to focus on the missions and abandoned the ecotourism arm because of the lack of funding, because they had to choose. So that was their problem.
Got it. Well, if the people who aren't the environmentalists are, or at least like the sole environmentalists, are the ones making money from environmentalism, then it's going to be easier for everyone to feel good about it. Like the community should support them, at least in principle. But everything sounds nice until you get into it. But I think we're onto something. I think we're onto something. The money just has to flow to the ground. And then we can
These
deal with, the external, the rich external
my bad.
hotels on a separate thread. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
These devices are obviously like waterproof, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes, they've been, yeah, these are new, so like there's a degree to which they
Okay.
haven't been tested as long in the forest as others, but yeah.
I know this, I kind of going off on tangents, but in the future, like it's definitely maybe a future thing, but like maybe expanding into like aquatic life and stuff like that as well. Like
Mhm.
making it kind of like so it can be like in water or near water or like big bodies of water. Just like the ecotourism point, like I know in New Zealand, like I did quite a few ecotourism like adventures, and we were I was studying there, so we would like evaluate like how their ecotourism was at different places, and this like dolphin ecotourism company that we were like analyzing one day. I feel like they're looking for like where the dolphin species are, and like they're not trying to
Mhm.
keep them in one area, so they're kind of going out and like looking all over. And I feel like if they had like some devices on boats or like something like that where they could kind of hear those sounds and like get a good idea of where they are, like could make their experiences better. So I think
Cool.
this also could connect to that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on the hardware front, we actually we're taking in, because there's the hardware for like smart hydrophones that actually there's some programs you can use to like ingest it into our system in real time. We don't build hardware for underwater ourselves, but this has like a hydrophone or like a microphone input. So if you could have this on the edge of a boat and then just have a hydrophone underneath the
Going
boat
in.
or on the shore.
Oh, okay.
So there's that. But
Wow.
yeah, I'm down. Like again, you're right. If it ties into the rest, then we're there for it. We're definitely there for it. Or there's also like USB. There's also USB microphones. There's a USB input on this too. So
Okay. Wow.
yeah, I'm totally down. It's super important. Here, check this out. This is there's these hydrophones up in
Yeah.
like Vancouver Bay, and this is all these orcas who like come through and sing, and it's pretty cute.
Oh, wow.
Like compacts and stuff.
That's really cool.
So on the yeah, sorry to cut you guys off on that one. Again, definitely gonna go with you on, if you enjoy working with me and us. Again, thank you, Zoom. If you enjoy working with me and us, then we should do New Zealand. But God, there's so much for us to do together in the meantime.
Yeah.
I like the idea of you being able to focus particularly on the NFT stuff, because it's a legitimate spin-off, and it means maybe we don't have to think about it as much internally, although it's all part of the same team, you and us together. But I guess like trying to figure out what the next steps are. Like, you're gonna do a site visit, but are you trying to take stuff out there then, or are you just trying to investigate when you go there in February?
Yeah, so this was obviously given we hadn't had this talk earlier, but if there's a feasibility to have any of the relevant tech placed in the Rimba location, so that the data can now be integrated into the proof of impact NFTs, that would be pretty awesome as a use case. This is how all the pieces are connecting.
That's ambitious, but not impossible. So let me think of that, because we have to build a bunch of hardware. I hadn't planned to have them ready by February, but
okay,
maybe like one. We'll see about it.
Cool.
Yeah.
they don't have to necessarily be ready by February because we have the project timeline until I think April. So Nad will be going to Indonesia in Feb. This is why I wanted to kind of align with her, but she'll be in Indonesia from February onwards. So whatever's best on your side with operationalizing things, we can kind of align down the line.
It could also, if it's
Would you
not
guys-
ready, it could be kind of like a next step, or like a once the project's like kind of concluding, we could be like, this is what we're gonna do next to kind of increase the evaluation efforts. And
Sure. Or if it's about getting, maybe we give you a unit that you take out there to show the communities, get them like understanding it. Sometimes I could demo one, whether you leave it there or not, because leaving it there might require some setup that some of the new stuff isn't quite ready to do without like me there to fix some things.
Yeah.
Time. But yeah, having one there that you can show around to people and get them familiar with it and excited sometimes helps.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome. And the other thing as well, like with the NFTs, they can be updated as much and as little and into the future. So it doesn't have to be, time pressured. We can do when the time's right.
Yeah, agreed. I agree. But sometimes, yeah, I'm not expecting that would generate any revenue anytime soon, but it's part of a model for generating revenue that sometimes could be helpful in getting some support on board. Plus, I've been talking about this for a year, and I haven't actually built any of it. So if you guys move forward on it, you'll just make me feel like I'm less full of shit.
Oh man, well,
let's do it.
It's fate. Here we are.
Cool. Would you guys want to talk again like next? Oh, we're supposed to talk on Tuesday anyway, which is pretty soon.
If that's still okay with you, because that's our weekly with Nad as well, so you get to have a insight from her as well. I'm gonna have to hop off in 5 to pick up my son. So I don't know if Paul or Topher, if you guys got anything you wanna
Great to meet you
say.
Guys. No, I'm gonna jump it up, but I'll see you on Tuesday, I hope, and we'll keep doing this on a regular basis. So I'm really excited. You guys are awesome, and I look forward to doing this.
Super excited.
You as well. It's so great to meet you, and yeah, look forward to the next
cool
steps and the future, and collaborating and hopefully creating better impact together. So
yeah, man,
for real. By the way, my friend who works in penguins told me that there's fjord forest penguins in South America. Oh, sorry, in New Zealand.
Oh yes, there are actually.
Fjord forest penguins.
And of course, all penguins apparently came from New Zealand, which also makes sense once you hear it. You're like, oh, of course, like that's where all the crazy birds come from,
Literally, yeah. No, I mean they have more bird species there than yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I was so in depth into the ecology because I focused on sustainability and ecology there, and I learned about all these different species, and it's pretty insane what comes from there.
All right, man. I can't wait to hear about that.
More to talk about soon.
More to talk about that soon. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Right, man.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah.
See ya.
Take care. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Hey. See ya.
Hey.
Hey, bro.
How have you been?
Oh man, yeah. Now you can
Sorry,
hear.
you've been so sick. Yeah.
Bro, it's been crazy, but I'm finally able to sustain some talking. So that's been good timing, right? Otherwise, I don't know. It's just doing my head in, man. But I think we got all of the links, right? I've clicked on the links in the chat. So if you haven't clicked on any, maybe just grab it out for yourself as well.
Yes, I will quickly grab these all. Yeah, no, I just kept thinking of really cool ideas of how they could.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. He seems like a really open-minded and down-to-earth guy, man. So I think the fact that he wants to collaborate is actually mental. It's awesome.
And this is kind of like a good first use case for the onboarding kits in a way, to start tracking. And so this could be our rainforest, or rainforest / biodiversity onboarding kit. And then if we create this kit, have a certain price for that impact association or NGO who would want to integrate this, they integrate it, they get onboarded, they can start tracking and tracing their impact data. And then just a good first use case for that all, and then we can kind of expand it, be like, we did this company, like we'd like to do this with you, so we can monitor like maybe I don't like the food production, or I don't know, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, if I understood correctly, he said that he wanted to do this NFT work for a year now, and he was like, the fact that you guys are kind of in it allows us to not have to have internal concentration on it because you guys are
Yeah.
doing it, but we'll be doing it together, and it will help me to feel like I'm not full of shit. So I think what we can do then, we can officialize like a document that says we're
Collaboration.
working in collaboration, and the onboarding doc that you've already started, we can create just a like a 3-page Canva on what we've already discussed with some visuals, and that could be like an asset which we then will add to over time with them, and that becomes the kind of case study report.
Yeah, and then like we can like kind of share that to like any other like people in the future. Like,
Yeah,
this is how we did it with this
exactly.
group. Like, we'd like to integrate, make a similar partnership where we're using your tech, your stuff to like better our impact evaluation, and
And
also
what's
better your
also
work as well. True, too.
exactly,
Like,
it's about the value that they get from the partnership, right? And as he was saying, most of their funding, the corporate funding, is focused on the biodiversity side of their tech. So once they can say, this is what we did with these guys, they will send it back to their funders, and then we will hopefully be able to access the same funders because they'll be like, oh well,
this
do
is
more
what
of that.
they're doing. Yeah, yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah.
So we should really double down on whatever we do with him and Rainforest Connection, because he's actually the founder and board member. He's not the CEO. So he founded the company just over 10 years ago, and now they've expanded to have a lot of scientists and a more corporate structure. But he's still the founder. As he said, he's the guy making the tech. He's the
Yeah.
guy that will go out and show you how to use it. So he's not one of those founders who are like on a yacht and just being
Yeah,
like,
he's like real.
you know what I'm saying? So I mean, yeah, it's a bit of a miracle, man. That like the timing of you wouldn't believe it. Like, I was watching those YouTube videos, right? Again, so like we were talking about these guys from before, but I was watching them
Like
again.
yeah, you showed me him like way back. Like, that's why I was like at first like, I don't know if I've seen this, and then I saw the, like their homepage, and I was like, oh no, I've seen
Yeah,
this quite a few times.
and I was writing the proposal, right, and looking at our proposals, and I was thinking, like, what the hell, man? Let me just send him the idea scale links and see what he says. And then he responded almost immediately. He must
Oh
have been
wow.
on his phone, and he was like, "Oh wow, like, yeah, man, like, what do you need?" And I was like, "What?" I was like, "What?" And then we were literally finishing the proposal together. And then he was like, "Right, what I'll get back to you tomorrow." And then he got back to me like later than he said he would. So it was the last hour before the catalyst deadline.
Oh, so you have a proposal in this funding round then?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I got him to come into the Street Surveyor one.
Oh, okay. No way.
But he's in Catalyst now. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
so
I didn't even realize that.
yeah. So that's what I'm saying, man. Like, if even if we don't get the Street Surveyor one funded, because the Street Surveyor one is back to the proof of impact platform, right? It's all about getting him and his non-profit and the tech into our ecosystem, and he's already said he's interested,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
so it almost doesn't matter if that doesn't get funding now, because they want to build what we've just discussed. So it's all good.
That's awesome. That's crazy. Oh, I didn't even realize that he was already in the eco. Like,
Yeah.
oh,
That's what I was saying to him. I was like, it's really a miracle, bro, because just before you came on the call, I was saying to him, like, thank you for responding, because if you didn't respond, if it was even a day later, it would have been
like,
great still.
yeah.
But he was like, oh no, like, yeah, this is really awesome what you guys want to do with what you're doing with Rimba and PNNI, and ultimately we want to have our tech helping those causes. So that's the the main thing, right? Like he was saying about sustainability. How do you make something that's making a difference,
and
but
profitable
by having a business model out of it? So
Mhm.
the fact that we can talk about things like NFTs and monetizing and those sides of it, I think he's convinced that we're the competent people.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting because if in February everything gets funding, always thinking in the ideal sense, but if everything gets funding, we'll have to hire some people, man, for sure.
Most most definitely. I think we're gonna have to hire some people no matter what.
Yeah, but the intern, I don't know if you saw the email. I have to jump off, bro, but I forwarded an email from Pagoda. Have another look when you have some time, because we have to interview the candidate
Oh, okay.
sometime in the next couple of weeks, and then they're going to
Yeah.
give us more candidates. But we will hopefully have interns, I think, by the end of the month.
Oh, wow.
And also Cambridge Consulting are kind of like interns, but they're more experienced, and we can pay them what we want to pay them. So that's up to us. We can give how we think. They've got a good track record, so I actually think we'll be able to have some good capacity from the Cambridge Consulting guys and the interns. So it's just about thinking how we want to use that in the next 3 months.
Most definitely, and maybe we should maybe almost make a plan, maybe, of like what they're gonna focus on, the different interns, like maybe like just to like so we don't have to be constantly meeting with them like the last people, but so that they're like a little more informed, like what they should exactly do.
And I told Pagoda as well, like the last interns, they were cool, they were great, but I know they were focused on their thesis. So it's like any interns we take in the interview, we're gonna she was like, just ask them, are you doing your thesis, and how many hours can you honestly actually do, because it will help us plan better, because
most
then
definitely.
we'll know how much they can actually do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they're getting paid pretty well through Pagoda, right? So they should be.
Yeah, they get full time.
Okay.
So
do you know what their hourly is
well, I can ask again. I don't have
No
the info,
worries. Yeah, no
but
worries.
by the UK standards, it's going to be at least, I think, $14 an hour.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
Something like that, minimum.
yeah. So yeah, then they should be definitely doing the work.
Yeah, but yeah, bro, I'm gonna have to go get Zach. So
No
I'll
worries.
go online in a while, and I'll hit you up on WhatsApp. Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, let me know. Safe travels on. I'm happy to see you're on the mend of getting back. Getting back.
Yeah, man.
All
See
right.
you
Catch
soon,
up
bro.
soon. Bye.
Take care, man.